And just as a brief introduction, I am Maddy Martin. I am the head of growth and education for Smith.ai. We are a virtual receptionist and website chat company, and we've been around for 5 years now, and we focus primarily on helping small businesses and mostly solo and small firm attorneys to be more responsive, to be more productive, to be more profitable, and run a sustainable small business. It's such a huge advantage being in a small business. You get to connect more and serve more closely with the clients. But there are burdens, and you have to offload some of those burdens. You can't do it all yourself. So that's what we're here for. And we have the great pleasure of getting connected with others who are helping similarly minded small businesses and small business owners to level up their practice, to get more deeply ingrained in their communities. We know with the lawyer community, with attorney communities, that you're so deeply involved in the place where you live and work, and referrals are so important to you. So we're going to touch on sort of how to be a bigger member of your community and to contribute and to draw other experts into your sphere when you're working with clients. So really excited to share with you today the perspective of Jim and Jolyn Armstrong. They're going to be talking about searching for an attorney, a client's perspective, and their journey that was brought about in a very abrupt way. And I will share also the blog post that they wrote for our blog that dives deep into that story as well. But we're going to hear from them, their story, their journey in finding an attorney, and then what that taught them and inspired in them to create that now is accessible to everyone here. So without further ado, Jim and Jolyn, so nice to have you here. If you'll just provide a brief introduction, and then you can go right ahead into your presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maddy. Jolyn and I are, well, we're really thrilled to have been introduced to you. Smith.ai and you in particular, Maddy, have been fantastic in helping us kind of break through the ice and get involved with a lot of forward-thinking attorneys and organizations that are helping attorneys. So thank you so much. And this is my wife, Jolyn, we're co-founders and partners together in the FOTA Project, which we'll talk about in a little while.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Maddy. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Our story is not a pleasant one, but we'll share it nonetheless. And it's one that probably attorneys recognize a little bit, but sharing our perspective is something that we thought would be super helpful. So I'll dive right in without further ado. We had been spending the winter, Jim and I travel around quite a little bit, and we had been spending the winter in California. And just working. It was a normal work day for me. We were staying in a place where I didn't have great cell service, and that kind of kicked this whole thing off. I ended my work day, closed up my computer, took my cell phone to a different part of the house I was staying in, and just suddenly all of these messages came into my phone. And texts from my youngest son, voicemails from my ex-husband, his father, and I looked at the text from my youngest son first, and he said, "Mom, Dad's trying to get a hold of you. Where are you? We're trying to get in touch with you." And he was talking about, we're trying to get in touch with you about my brother. And my other son was in the military at the time, and my mind immediately went to, oh my gosh, he's been deployed, or there's been, an accident or something terrible has happened to him related to the military. And I saw 4 of the messages that came into my phone were from voicemails from a number I didn't recognize in Colorado, where my son was stationed. And so I played the first one, and it wasn't from the military. It wasn't from a hospital or anything like that. It was one of those automated messages from a county jail. And he, letting me know he had been arrested. And oh my gosh, my world crumbled. Absolutely. So the only thing I could think of was call my husband. Like, I need Jim by me. So I did that. He was at the gym at the time. He had wrapped up his work day and gone to the gym because he's good that way. So I left him this blubbering voicemail and begged him to come home quick, which he did. So I appreciated that.
Yes, I'm in the middle of my workout and she left a voicemail, and normally I don't check them, but I did, you know, if I'm working out, and normally I'd have waited, but for some reason I checked this one and I heard her in a state that I have never ever heard her in before. It scared me. It was so I went home immediately. Jolyn barely knew. All she knew was that her son was in jail.
Right.
No details, no anything, and
your mind's racing.
Didn't know how to get in touch with him. Of course, they don't let you. You know, they don't pass messages to inmates. We learned. So yeah, we didn't know what to do at first.
It was
terrible.
Yeah, it was like entering a nightmare that you can't wake up from. You know, you go to sleep, you know, you go to bed that night and then wake up and the nightmare's there. And so we have our other business is doing training and coaching and on sales and marketing for small businesses. A lot of what Smith.ai does for your clients, Maddy. And so we had a mastermind coming up in Las Vegas for some of our higher, you know, our top clients. And it's a 2-day intensive. You know, we had the conference room, you know, arrangements we were in the middle of, and catering, and, you know, just all the 101 details that go into putting on a live event. And, you know, these doggone.
Not to mention the investment, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Just.
Yeah. People counting on us.
And, flights are purchased. There's no backing out.
Everything's prepaid, deposited, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And plus it was connected to the largest, our main work we do is in the flooring industry. And it was tied to the largest trade show in the flooring industry in the United States. So they're not going to move that for us. And,
we had to march on ahead.
You know, the criminal justice system is so impolite in that it doesn't consult your schedule before involving you in it. So what immediately began happening is I started making travel arrangements to fly to Colorado, then to Vegas, then back to California, and then it just jumped into that. Jolyn, you started.
I just started calling attorneys, Googling attorneys in that area, and calling them, setting up appointments for the following week. We're going to travel over the weekend and meet attorneys the next week. And I swear the first attorney, if I wasn't afraid enough, the first attorney I talked to terrified me even more, because he asked me a question. He said, you know, when does your flight get into town? And I told him, oh, well, over the weekend, Sunday. So if we can set something up during the week. And he said, no, he said, I'll take you to dinner Sunday night. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this isn't just serious to me. Like, this is a serious case. And I was horrified at the prospect, but he, you know, I made dinner plans with him and his managing partner. The both of them were going to give up their time on a Sunday night to make sure they were the first ones to talk to us. And I was horrified by it. But I went on, scheduled, you know, half a dozen or so other appointments for the following week. And yeah, we got on a plane on Sunday and headed to Colorado to figure all of this out and start meeting with attorneys. So, oh, what a nightmare that time.
So, you know, we're flying in, and just to kind of set the stage, you know, we were feeling like again, like a nightmare we couldn't wake up from, confusion, a tremendous sense of isolation. Because by then we had an idea what the charges were, and they were pretty serious. And you know, you as defense you know, for our defense attorneys who are on this, you know, that the families who are part of, you know, your clients' families, you know, they are often guilty by association. There's all kinds of social and societal, you know,
Stigmas and
oh
right.
my God, yes. And
Mm.
We couldn't
There's
let our
fear,
clients know.
shame, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
totally. And so
And
we're
grief
going,
at the same time. I mean, it's a whole mix of emotions.
Oh my gosh, it was terrible. It was and unexpected. I remember thinking, you know, my first fear when all of those messages came into my phone was that, you know, he's either been hurt in some training exercise or he's been deployed or being deployed. And that to me was so terrifying. And then I remember thinking, you know what? I wish he would have been deployed. Like, it was, at least it
That's
had
his burden of responsibility instead of now what's become your burden of responsibility.
oh my goodness. So,
well, so we're flying into town, and one thing that we discovered through our journey was what we later started calling points of light, or you know, beacons of light out there, of because it's pure darkness. And you know, we you know, the flight attendant that gave us a blanket, or we're at the hotel where we were staying. We got a last minute call, and we had we were eating in their restaurant, and the waitress could tell we were stressed. And so she took our food and boxed it up and said, "Hey, we'll have it here waiting for you when you get back." Because we couldn't even, we had 2 bites and we had to go. And on, just these points of light that it's hard to overstate what that meant to us. Okay.
It's almost like the taking care of the caretaker, you know, like you always think about now the parents who are taking care of multiple generations, you know, they often in this middle wedge generation, people who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s have elderly parents who are living much longer. They have children still, maybe even in the household. Who's taking care of them, right? Because they're running around frantic all the time. And it's much like that. You know, who's taking care of the nurses right now during COVID? As we're recording this, there are a lot of, you know, frontline workers who are giving a lot more and not necessarily having their own needs met.
Right. That's where we were.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
So,
but yeah, those beacons, that really was those couple little lights in the darkness. Oh.
So that's how we were going into these attorney meetings, is kind of in this mindset or emotional state, really. And what we found, we wound up interviewing 6 attorneys, and so, you know, some of them made some real blunders. They didn't mean to, but we wound up not going with them. And then there was the one attorney who really did some things right. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Let's talk about what people did wrong. So I think that everyone here is dying to know both the right and the wrong. So like, let's start with sort of the wrong, and maybe that leads us into the right. And how do we frame it as what your expectation was versus what was delivered, if that's relevant?
Yeah. So, I mean, I really expected, you know, short to medium length appointments in an attorney's office. I had never dealt with something like this, or
like a doctor's appointment or something.
Yeah, right. So we come in, get shuffled in, talk to them, and leave. So the dinner appointment knocked me off my feet a little bit. I went, oh my, why in the world, right? And
so that felt overly intimate to you? Is that or overly hungry and aggressive almost, even though it was sort of shrouded in this very gifting approach?
Yeah, and it had an effect of terrifying me more. Like, why would they do this for this case? And oh my God, it's a serious case. And so it set me off more. But
I see.
I was hoping for an arm around the shoulder when we met with them. I was hoping for, okay, at least we are going to be greeted back in Colorado with
But not salivating. It was a little too much salivating over. Okay.
Well, and it wasn't just that, there was a little bit too much tequila too. So that's one thing that they did really, like they took us to a Mexican restaurant and immediately ordered a round of drinks, which is fine. That's fine. But then they continued drinking and
we weren't drinking.
we weren't sleeping.
Well, how can you be compos mentis, you know, and get through the days and get all the things that you need to do? Right. And it's a little bit of a party atmosphere, and I'm sure you didn't feel like celebrating.
Right. And they were kind of, I mean, as liquor flows, you get a little jovial, and they started mocking the case a little bit. And I thought,
well, the true colors. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, making a joke of what our son was, you know, some of our son's statements was not what we expected. And
right.
So they were the one partner was just like going to town on the chips and salsa, just like it was like we were at a cocktail party.
So not necessarily. That's interesting. You know, I think that there are ways to have dinners that are professional and constructive, and there are then just dinners, right? And it seems like there's a loss of focus that happened there. When you went and you saw the other 4 or however many there were before you hit the good one, what qualities or experiences did those exhibit?
Yeah, so they kind of ran the gamut a little bit. There was one that had really great reviews, and that's why I scheduled an appointment with him. The minute we walked into his office, though, it was unprofessional, and it was not welcoming at all. A little bit of a cold, kind of sterile atmosphere, and then he was super condescending, like
really
just I argued with that one.
She almost wound up in a shouting match with him.
Which isn't me.
That isn't usual. Well, okay, high emotional state.
Yeah.
Okay, which is how people are coming to your office. They're usually seeing you at the worst time in their lives, especially in the criminal defense world.
Yeah.
So he was.
Yeah, he was rude.
So he was. Yeah, he. I mean, and he was wrong too. We found out later that
I see
things he was saying were just. They were now. Some of them, they like one attorney came and met us at the hotel. Really kind gentleman, a nice fellow, but he was very young, and he came across as though he was just fresh out of law school, and so he lacked the confidence. We could just tell we were not going to put our son's life in his hands. We went away saying, okay.
I wish him the best. I hope he's doing okay.
Well, he needs 5 or 8 years at a.
You're not going to be the test case.
No.
Well, and too severe anyway to risk giving someone who you may have liked a chance. There's too much risk on the other side of it.
Nope.
He should have known that. Like
This wasn't like we needed a letter written to send to a creditor or something.
Yes.
This is jail time we're
Very
talking.
severe, right?
So he was off the list, and then the others just.
There were some that were decent. They just,
So we go into the office. There were one or two of them that made us, in their questioning, almost made us feel like we were being cross-examined.
Yeah.
And
if you had more information or if you were being truthful.
Yes.
And a little bit like down the nose at us, a little bit like, oh, you're the parents of,
Yeah, and like we're so used to dealing with criminals that they expected us to be be criminals or something. I'm just guessing, but it felt like
almost standoffish then, a little distancing and cold maybe.
And their manner suggested they didn't trust us. We'd give them answers to their questions, and it was like they were skeptical. Come on, we're not going to lie to you. We're trying to get. So that was happening. And then when we would enter the law office, and we'll contrast this in a minute with what the one did right, but we go in and it wasn't as though we had an expectation, Maddy. You said, what was our expectations? We had none. Our minds were spinning so much that when we went in and they'd say, the receptionist or whoever would say, may I help you? And it was wasn't rude exactly, but it certainly wasn't warm and welcoming and made us feel like they really were glad to see us or even comforting in any way.
Sort of perfunctory.
Very.
I've been told I should say these things.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
So, and there were a couple of them who didn't really do anything wrong. They didn't, get drunk on margaritas and kill, it wasn't that. It's just they didn't
inspire confidence.
It wasn't even that. They were perfectly competent. It was that the one we wound up going with did so much better.
Huh. Okay. That's a really good point there, that it was so apparent to you, even having been so new to the experience, that you knew what you needed when you found it, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. We literally went in with no expectations. I've never had to do this before. This is way outside our wheelhouse.
I feel like I should have had music ready for the what do they do? I'm so excited.
Well, it
wasn't super over the top either, but
no,
it's just,
it's don't, and I want to make this point clear before I tell you what they did right. It sounds like small things. What we're about to say, you're going to go, oh, is that all? It'd be tempting to say that. And a marketing guru of mine said, little hinges swing big doors. And it was these things that we're going to relay to you. And at the time, we didn't analyze it the way we have now. We're trainers and we've had much time to analyze what happened. All we knew at the time was it felt like a warm blanket around us. It felt like that beacon of light and like, hey, we got a fire here. Come and sit down by the fire. Hey, here's some hot cocoa. And here's a blanket. It's dark and cold and there's wolves out there.
It touched on that deep seated area of your brain that says, I'm safe. I don't have to keep fleeing, right? So.
Yes. And at the time, we didn't even realize it was happening. Okay, this is, for everybody listening to this is not something that we analyzed at the time. We just went away and went, oh, that was nice. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you're in the thick of it in the moment, and you have to make a decision. So you haven't been so sort of excited about the rest of the crowd. So you may not have even realized how good was if it was just, this'll work.
That's exactly what it was like. And so we go in there and on the phone, when we walked in, the receptionist said, hey, welcome. How may I help you? And the way she said it was like she was happy to see us. And come on in out of it was through her tone. It was all tone. Yeah. I mean, you can say, how may I help you? Or, hey, how may I help you?
Yeah. Right.
It's all in the tone. And
we often say just smile as you talk and you don't have to worry about your tone.
Right, exactly.
It's that simple.
And she did, and she was incredibly welcoming. It was really nice. Yeah.
So that immediately brings one barrier down and your shoulders go down a half an inch. What brings your shoulders down another half an inch?
She immediately offered us a beverage. Would you like a bottle of water or some coffee? Immediately. And we went, yeah, actually, we are kind of thirsty, and then she said, I'll let your attorney know you're here. And she did the little phone thing. And then she said, okay, she's going to be just a few minutes. Why don't you have a seat in our waiting area? I'll bring you your drinks and, make yourselves comfortable. It was like she was inviting us into her living room. Okay. When the attorney came out, she was friendly, but she wasn't like the first two that took us to the restaurant where there was that, used car salesman grin and almost salivating over this big case that just fell into their lap. Can you believe? No, it was, hey guys, she told us her name and said, why don't you come on back? And it wasn't anything over the top. It was just like
let's take care of you.
Confident kindness. You know, just come on back. And so we went back there and just.
Well, there was one thing. I really wasn't probably very likable at that time, and I was just such a mess and hadn't slept in days and hadn't eaten and on and on. And I had in my mind this kind of way I was thinking this case should go, or things that I thought the attorneys should maybe try. And I had kind of pitched this idea to a few of them, and some who appeased me. Oh yeah, okay, that's good. It was a terrible idea. It was awful. And I can see that now, but she said, yeah, we're not going to do that. And she explained to me what she didn't like try to appease me.
Yeah, it's like your suggestion was, should I bake a cake with a file in it and sneak it into my son?
Yeah, I mean, it was at that level, and it wasn't really that, but she let me know, hey, we're, in that kind way, we are going to handle this, use our expertise and handle this the way it needs to be handled. And here's why we're not going to do this ridiculous thing that you're thinking of. So, anyway, it was just this kind correction that I thought at first I was like, oh, and then I went, oh, yeah.
One other thing that she did too is her whole, again, these are little things.
Yeah.
But just her body language communicated, I'm not just listening to the words you say, I'm hearing you. She asked one of the first questions she asked was, how are you guys doing? Whoa, oh my gosh.
That was big. That was pretty big.
I don't know if anyone else asked us that. I don't remember it. And then as she asked the questions, she's paying close attention and writing down notes, like she's really engaged with hearing what we had to say.
Yeah.
And
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I find, and I'm sure many of the people here will find, and you may find even in your own businesses, if someone is taking notes, if it's my own staff or someone who I'm in a meeting with, that gives me such a sense of confidence. And if they're not, by contrast, I can feel like sort of my blood pressure rise. Like
it's missed a little bit. Yeah.
Why is someone not taking notes? I take this seriously. Do you take it seriously? I know the story. Like if you're telling someone your story, you don't need to take notes, but the person who's going to be responsible would.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And she did one other thing that really sold me on her, probably you too. And it was towards the end of our meeting. We needed to leave. And we told them, we've got a few more appointments, and, they knew that we had been meeting attorneys already. And when we mentioned, that we had more appointments yet to get to, she asked us, well, how many people are you meeting with? And we told her, half a dozen or so. And she said, well, wait a minute. If I can just offer, a bit of insight here, this case, there are maybe 3 firms in town that have the experience and the staffing and the ability to handle this case. So I think you're meeting with too many people. And, she didn't say it in a way like, hey, we're the only ones, come hire it. Nobody else is going to take care of you. It was not like that at all. She said, they were one of them that could handle it, but she said, there are 2 others in town that I can think of that can handle this at all. And so I just showed her my list. I said, can you, tell me?
Are they on there? Right.
Yeah, are they on there? And both of the other 2 were on there. And she said, this one who we had met with already, and another one that we were scheduled to meet with, she said, meet with these 2. She said, you can cancel the rest. And she saw the one that was like, I almost got in a shouting match with, and she just went, yeah.
She didn't say anything. She just went like this. Like signaling, no, this guy's a lunatic.
I imagine she was exceptionally well-mannered from everything that you have said, but you still get the point she is giving.
Yeah, and she said, listen, between these 3, choose who you connect with the most and who your son connects with the most. This is going to be a long relationship. This is not 1 or 2 hearings that we're talking about. So it really comes down to who you can develop this relationship with the most. And we really wish you the best in making that decision. And they also, and that to me, I just thought, oh my, she's not like Wow, what a change from
What a masterful sales technique to say, I'm going to educate you and the ball is in your court. I've given you more than you asked for. If you really break it down, you didn't ask her to review the list. She opened the door for that review.
Yeah.
And you had enough camaraderie at that point to feel like she's already established enough trust that in a stickier situation where she's talking about her competitors, you already have enough trust where it conveys into that situation and you trust her there, right?
Yeah.
If you jumped into that right away, if you were at dinner having tequila and trying to fight for the last chip with the other guys, you might not feel like that would have been an appropriate conversation to have had in that situation, right?
Nor would I have taken their suggestion anyway.
Right.
So their drunken suggestion at that point.
You're
Yeah.
drunk.
So yeah, it was, I mean, she was, the fact that she cared enough about us to suggest that and to, you know, yeah, that was pretty amazing. I mean, on a side note, they also gave us information on the, oh, what are they called?
Bail.
Yes. She gave us some help there because I don't know, and his bail was crazy, and so anyway, she helped us with that too before we had ever even, you know, we're heading to another appointment right now to one of the other firms that you've said.
She knew the things you had to think about. She said,
Yeah.
have you taken your inventory and this is what you should have as inventory if you haven't.
Yes, and so I mean it was really, really wonderful. So
She also offered to, said, by the way, during this decision process, feel free to call us with questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah, it was fantastic. It was really, I mean, who's not sold on that?
So how long did it take you to decide to go with, like, I think that so many attorneys who we often talk to, they'll have a conversation that from their end feels like it went that well. And then there's the waiting period. Do you follow up? How do you follow up? Who follows up? Is it you? Is it your staff? What boundaries do you want to set in the beginning? And what level of care and attentiveness do you want to set? There's, you know, sort of a balance there. What happened to maintain the momentum of that positive experience?
So one thing that I think the biggest issue right at that point was our son was still in jail and we needed to get him out of jail. We needed to get him out.
I had to make a decision, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it was really, we understood, even as, you know, the lack of experience that we had, we understood we're not the client here. He's going to have to work with them. And so we wanted him to meet with at least those top three, right? And so we got him out of jail and scheduled for him to come in and see them. And I mean, they offered to go into the jail and speak with him there. And when we said, well, you know, let's see what this bail bondsman can do and get him out, they said, yeah, it's actually better if he can meet us outside of that environment where the stress level is a little bit lower. So they waited for that. We told them we're going to get him out and bring him back so that he could meet with them. And that's what we did. And during that meeting is when we hired them. And they didn't follow up with us during that time period. It was a couple of,
it was short.
It was a day maybe.
It was certainly within 48 hours that we were only in town for a few days.
Yeah, we still had that event, by the way.
Yeah. So one, your son felt good about him as well. And I will say this, the two that she recommended in terms of could handle this case, they didn't make any what I would call mistakes. They weren't to do some awful thing that we just went, oh. They were very professional, but the one we went with did it better. And
it's not an arranged marriage. You have the freedom of choice, and you also have another stakeholder at the table. And, you know, that's another opportunity for validation, right? And until things are signed, that opportunity for validation is really important. You know, you've had one interaction. It's like going to see a new house or even going to a restaurant and the food was good. Well, can they repeat the performance, right?
So he was very comfortable with that one. You know, he wasn't making really the final decision because we had to figure out a way to pay for this, and we also
There's a huge financial aspect.
Yeah.
And being older, we have more of an insight into the kind of character we're looking for. But we wanted to at least make sure that he felt good about, you know, tell us your top 2 or 3, and then let's kind of figure it out from there. So it was kind of a joint decision. But what they did more than the other 2 attorneys wasn't like some massive thing. It wasn't like she met us at 3 a.m. on a Saturday or left her kid's birthday party or something. It was small things. And the other, and they weren't the cheapest. Price hardly came into it. You know, we didn't know. We have no idea what law schools these people went to, what their number of degrees were, what their alphabet soup after their name. None of that. I'm telling you, that isn't what we were looking at, and we still couldn't tell you those things.
So the small things, if we can enumerate some of them, it sounds like the greeting, the attentiveness, the personalization, the sort of whole being approach to those meetings, the taking notes, and maybe there's eye contact. There's even, you know, is your body facing forward during a meeting or are you sort of turned, right? Is there a desk between you? You know, how much space are you occupying, you know, in that room? If you're physically in a room, so many people are doing virtual consultations now, but there's still such a thing as eye contact, as smiling, as asking someone how they're doing. That was another small thing that you mentioned. So if you're listening to us and wondering, you know, what are these small things that you're referencing, it's every element of the experience that's not specifically referencing the law, right? It is the environment you're being brought into, and that can be a virtual environment. You know, if you have a remote consultation, for example, let's imagine that was done right now in this day and age. There are a number of factors that may be different, but if you have a very noisy home environment or a dog barking or something jarring, there's an aspect of quietness that's important to pay attention and make sure that there aren't things that can call away your attention that by no fault of your own, you know, you forgot to put the tea kettle off, or you forgot that the dog should go in the crate for a half an hour, or whatever the case may be. What are the things you can do to set yourself up for success to limit the noise and interruptions and the variables that you can control? Because we know in law, there's only so many things that you can control.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Maddy, what we did to prepare for this is our light just came. See, talk about things that come up.
Yeah.
There we go.
Very bright for a moment. There you go.
Yeah, so,
sorry about that.
All right.
Speaking of.
So, you know, equipment's great when it works. So, what we did in preparation for this is we took kind of our client experience and put it into some slides, and if we could share those with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, you know, it would be helpful to know, okay, so what was missing that you didn't get that this woman brought to you? It really feels like it was a sort of an amalgamation of many small areas of attention to detail, where the other ones were really just focused on the case, whether they were nasty about it or hurried about it. There wasn't that nuanced, hey, we're humans here and we have to be kind and mindful of each other and where our emotional states are. So yeah, go ahead and share your screen.
There we go.
Are you able to see that, Maddy?
That's perfect.
So
take it away.
So what we did is, you know, in keeping with that beacons of light theme, and well, I'll do what you've suggested, man. I want to kind of compare and contrast, you know, what some practical things. So first thing I would mention is how your phones are answered. I'm sure Maddy has talked to you about this. In terms of how people are greeted, that's the first way that people are in contact with you. That's the front line. And so many times it's easy to just say, you know, Acme Law Firm, may I help you? And that was like the standard greeting we heard. You know, if you change your tone, smile like Maddy said, that's great. If you smile, you automatically sound more friendly. Say, hi, thank you for calling the Acme Law Firm. How may we help you?
Right.
It's a huge difference. It almost doesn't seem fair because you've gone to law school, you've paid your hundreds of thousands of dollars, you've done all this work, and are you telling me that getting a client is going to be based on how I answer the phone?
Absolutely. And the Clio report says that too, Jim. I will tell you as an anecdote that and sorry for interrupting, but I think it just hammers home your point completely at a large data level. 2 out of 3 potential clients base their decision to hire on the firm's initial responsiveness alone. So if you have a secret sauce and you're an incredible attorney, they're never going to know if you don't pick up the phone. They're never going to get the opportunity to talk to you because you're not picking up the phone. And that goes with any open communication channel. It could be a chat, text, Facebook message, you name it these days.
So, and that's a really good point, Maddy. And, you know, I think one of the things that perhaps we're able to be of some help today is we just happen to be your clients, and we just happen to also be sales and marketing trainers and able to break down and perhaps express to you in a way that your clients won't. They're not going to break it down like we have.
They won't.
They'll just leave, and they may not even know why.
Or they'll write a negative review and you won't know what you did wrong and it just didn't feel right. The other thing that the Clio report says is 2 things. One, you know, if you give me a good experience and I like you, what is that intangible? If I like you, we have a nice friendly experience, I'll stop my search. They said that about half of the time. They also said, if you don't give me the amount of information that I need, like you were talking about the attorney who you hired, went above and beyond in informing you proactively, even beyond the questions that you thought you needed to have answered, the ones you didn't even know, the unknown. That is a clear distinguishing factor of the most successful firms, that they will win clients based on the confidence of the initial content of the conversation alone.
You know, it's sorry to say it's not fair, but it's the way the world works. The person who does the best job answering the phones and greeting clients is going to win over the person with the best law degree and all, because we didn't know anybody. It's not like somebody there had this outstanding reputation and, you know, they were like this rock star that everybody knew about and we were going to get them no matter what.
You weren't getting special treatment, right? These weren't warm introductions or referrals. These were cold conversations.
Totally. The other thing is the way they're greeted when you come in. So the phones are often answered, not necessarily unprofessionally, just no warmth to it. No. So what can we do to answer it in a way that, think of each touch point as an opportunity to win a client. Each touch point. And there's not a lot of touch points. There's only 4 or 5 throughout the, you know, the process.
Right.
The way you're greeted when you come in, you know, may I help you? That's not exactly mean and unfriendly, but it's a lot different than, how may I help you? Oh, wow, okay, come and sit by the fire. Come in out of the cold. You know, let us get you a hot cup of cocoa. And then the hospitality part of it was big. Just little touches hey, can we get you some bottled water or coffee or tea? And then the active listening. You know, what you said a minute ago, Maddy, is so true about writing things down. We train mostly who we work with is flooring retailers, and we teach them to do what doctors do. What do doctors do? They sit down, they ask questions, and they write down the answers. You want to be perceived as a family doctor, not as a used car salesman. And that active listening, just writing down, making eye contact, you're communicating volumes to them without saying a word.
You know, I'll say one other thing, Jim, as it comes to mind. If you write things down, you can also focus on being in the moment, because first of all, it forces that, you know, sort of written word into memory. That's one good thing about writing things down. The second thing, and that could be typing, could be writing, but the other thing is that it frees up your brain space, because you're not trying to memorize, you're actually trying to pay attention, right? And you know you don't have to memorize, so that opens up your brain space to absorb more of the situation.
Totally true. Absolutely. Use your brain for processing, not for storage, is the way and that means taking notes. Now, these are what I kind of call blocking and tackling. These are the basics.
Tips,
And so what I want to do now is just share some kind of more even over the top things that your competitors are never going to do. And if you really want to create differentiation, I mean, none of the attorneys did this with us, but there's some things you could do that I think would be helpful. This is something we've been teaching business owners for a long time, is the beverage menu strategy. When somebody walks in, you've greeted them, hand them a laminated beverage menu with what you have to offer and say, Mr. Jones will be out in just a few minutes. What can I get you to drink while you wait? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, where do they do that? They only do that in places of relaxation. So you probably immediately think, oh, well, this has only happened to me at a spa before, or at a very nice hotel or resort, right?
Exactly.
What experience does it evoke that might be referenced?
So it's you know, if they're interviewing 5 attorneys and you're the one that does this, they're definitely going to remember you. Another thing is having some kind of a welcome pack. That can be a welcome, like if you're doing it virtually, this can all be done by email. So having a welcome message, including some client testimonials, maybe a what to expect. So if you have different areas of practice, maybe you've got 5 different sort of canned messages for the person that is, you know, if it's a criminal case or if it's a probate case or whatever it is, here's what to expect. These 5, that would have really helped us because we were in the dark. And then maybe a meet the team. So it's kind of your website, but just taken put it in an email form that you send out to them, or in a welcome pack that they carry out with them.
And even there could be a special, you know, section on your website, a, you know, client portal that's very popular now, and a secure place to exchange messages. But we see this very often. And it also, we talked about momentum earlier, it builds momentum, right? It maintains that momentum where you had a really good experience, and this is a sort of a confirmation of it. Like, oh, I really am in the right place. That wasn't just one trick that I saw early on.
Yes. It's a, when you go into Starbucks, they're masters at creating, what allowed Starbucks to charge, you know, 5 times more for coffee than a Denny's, you know, back when Starbucks really started growing. Well, they created an immersive environment. If you want to get technical, I call it the zero resistance selling environment. The whole thing is just the smell, the sights, what they hear is conducive to me going, okay, I'll pay $5 for a cup of coffee. So which goes along with what you said, Maddy, what's this immersive experience they're having? And you don't have to I don't want anybody listening to this to get overwhelmed. Take one thing we've said and just put it in practice. And you know, I know attorneys are busy, you're working a lot of hours, you've got a lot of stresses. I totally get it. And so when Jolyn and I were thinking this through, it was okay, what kind of things can we put into our system, set it up once, and we don't have to touch it again. Yeah. And so that's, all of these things are for that. So anyway, this is one that you know, kind of ties into what we do. And
yeah. So the one thing that we really needed, whether we really knew it or not at that point, that nobody offered, even the attorney that we hired. She came closest by asking us how we were doing. But I'll tell you, you know, at that point, by the time we met with a lot of these folks, I hadn't slept in almost a week, more than a couple of hours maybe. And I was a complete mess. I was crying all the time. Every appointment I think we went into, I cried. We weren't eating. It just, and for the first 6 months of this experience, that went on. And it was because, you know, attorneys are focused on the law and the legal experience and all of the time and effort that they have put in to learning what needs to happen during this experience and how to defend clients. And I get that. I totally get that. But we were completely isolated at that moment and terrified. And if one person would have really stepped forward and said, hey, how are you doing? What do you need as far as some emotional support there? That, what?
Here's a resource.
Yeah, and here's a resource. What an experience that would have been, and we didn't think about it at the time, but some of the things that we were going through, I didn't realize were as common as they are. So in, going through this experience, coming kind of out the other side, some of the research that I've done and just trying to recover from this was really super shocking to me. One, how really common it is. So 6.5 million adults in the United States right now have an immediate family member in jail. Like, oh my gosh. So that number was astounding to me. And I mean, you can see that the stats on the screen are just horrifying, actually. And the fact that, the thing that we really learned through this was there are support systems for people who are facing incarceration. There are, people coming out of prison. There are tons of programs to support them and to bring them back on their feet. There are support systems for victims, as there should be. There's all of that. But a portion of society that's been kind of overlooked are people just like us, like the families of these people that are facing criminal charges, who wind up interacting with attorneys as much as the defendant, or almost as much as the defendant, and are just kind of out here in the cold and feeling super, super isolated. So, with that in mind, and as we've come out the other side and kind of gotten back on our feet, and with the experience that we've had in our past, or the training that we've had, we developed this program, the FOTA Project. So specifically focusing on, the well-being of the families of those who are accused of crimes. So, yeah.
So
yeah, what we do here is really providing one-on-one counseling, and that's really mostly my thing. I really love connecting with other family members of people who are struggling the way I struggled. Jim and I together do online trainings once a month in a group kind of setting for all of the families that we can get in front of, just to help them with different topics, different subjects. Our website, like you were mentioning before, Maddy, we have a member portal as well, our members resource area. That just has tons of information and books and videos for them to watch and things like that can help them. And then as we grow, because we're kind of a baby business here, but as we grow, we will be adding some group meetings, some group experiences, and live events as well. So that's really, we saw a hole in our society. We saw a huge need, and, just so happens we have the skills and the experience to fill that need. So one thing we wanted to provide to attorneys specifically, what we've created is this mood survey that attorneys can really easily, either slip into their welcome pack or have their receptionist, provide on just as soon as somebody comes in, or at any time in the relationship. This is what it looks like. It's a super easy 10-question survey, really assessing, where a client or their family is. Like, how are you feeling? How are you doing here? And so for attorneys, it's super easy. You have this for them at one glance. If you see most of their answers on the right-hand side of this form, you know that they may need some, somebody who's really focused on them and helping them with their mental health. We did include the last question. Question 10 is super important. We talked to an attorney recently who had lost a client to suicide. And that is, oh my gosh, we don't ever want that to happen. That question needed to be included there. And there's instruction for, if your client answers that question, what we need to do there as well.
Right, they may want crisis services
Yes.
more immediately than they need to be talking to an attorney right then, yeah.
Exactly. So we've made that really easy, and we'd love to partner with any of the attorneys on this call. And, some easy ways to do that. If email's easier for you, if you want to get this free tool, this mood survey, you can email us or call us, and we can shoot it your way for sure.
The email is connect@thefotaproject.org, or you can call us at 916-415-8619. We work with referral partnerships with defense attorneys and organizations like Smith.ai who support attorneys, and so we'd love to hear from you, and if we can be of service and help your clients,
Happy to do so.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. It was inspiring to hear your story. It was an insider look, and you guys really shared a lot of insights today. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for joining us. There will be a recording that is shared, and we will also post this on YouTube on our channel. You can find us Smith.ai on YouTube. But I really encourage that you do get in touch with Jim and Jolyn. Like, it is critical that you look into your community, not just as immediate referral partners. Obviously, there are the chiropractors and the personal injury attorneys. There are many sort of very important relationships that already exist that bring in clients. But one of the things indirectly that brings in clients is giving clients an amazing experience, working with already natural referral partners, other professional services providers. Many of you are in business networking groups, maybe BNI, and you see those every day. But in delivering an exceptional experience and creating, to use the book title, raving fans, a raving fan will refer so much more heavily and readily than someone who just came through, casual, normal, standard referral. So I highly encourage that you get that mood survey. That is just incredible. It is above and beyond, but with very little extra effort and no cost to you. I don't know why anyone wouldn't do this. So thank you so much for being here. Really pleasure having you, and thank you all for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Maddy. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.